Welcome back to the Wide Ride Podcast. I'm Manny Navarro, joined today by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All-Day Podcast. It is November 12th, 2025, Wednesday, right around 12:30 p.m. Your Miami Hurricanes are ranked 15th in the college football playoff rankings. They still got a ways to go if they're going to get to Charlotte for the ACC Championship, but they are coming off a 38-10 win, and Carlos is with me today to discuss the latest on the Canes. Carlos, how are you feeling about this program in the state it's in right now with 3 games to go?
I mean, they're in good position. I told you what happened. Teams in front of them would lose. They'd leapfrog some teams. All they had to do was take care of business. I mean, I didn't think the win was particularly pretty against Syracuse. I didn't think it was particularly dominating. But it was good enough, I guess, to get the committee's attention to say, hey, listen, these guys aren't giving up. They're not folding the tents. You know, they're still a pretty good football team. They still have a win against the number 9 ranked team, or a team that we're ranking number 9 this week. So they should be in the hunt. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 teams that lose in front of them. They should be able to at least move up to that 13 to 12 zone to have a chance to get in. All they've got to do is continue winning. But, you know, my feeling about this past weekend was like, man, sorry. You know what it's like? To me, it's everybody. Have you had Raising Cane's chicken strips?
Yes.
Everybody hyped up Raising Cane's chicken strips. I went to go have Raising Cane's not too long ago, and I was like, eh.
Yeah, for me, it's the sauce and the bread that make them a little different. But you're right; it's not that much.
Nothing spectacular, nothing earth-shattering. It's just basic ass chicken strips.
Yeah. We'll talk more about chicken strips and your football team. We got a couple topics to hit on today. We're going to preview the NC State game. I think Miami's a 2-touchdown favorite going into that one, which might be a mistake yet again by bettors, considering NC State knocked off Georgia Tech in their last game and are coming off a bye week. We'll take a look at that matchup for Miami. The game is a 3:30 kickoff on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
I believe so.
We're gonna talk about some penalties, Carlos, and we're gonna break down my breakdown of the penalty situation for the Hurricanes. A lot of fans angry. I looked this up the other day. Miami's penalty margin plus 33, meaning 33 more penalties called on them versus opponents, is the worst in the country. And some Miami fans are upset about that. We'll dive into that topic. We're going to review the Syracuse game. We're going to talk about some recruiting. Miami's picked up 3 commitments here. I think they have the number 11 ranked class in the 247 Sports Composite, 28 commitments. We'll talk about those guys as well. And we'll take a look at the AP top 25 in college football playoff rankings. But Carlos, let's start here. I just got off the phone, or not off the phone, off a Zoom call with Carson Beck and Malachi Tony and Inez Cooper and Francis Marino. They gave us 4 offensive players today. I think yesterday was defense. Your boy, Inez Cooper, I asked for the best restaurant recommendations in South Florida. He says Flanagan's. How does that make you feel?
Listen, Flanagan's is a South Florida institution. You know, we love Flanagan's. It is consistent anywhere. Any Flanagan's you go to, the food is consistent. It is good. It is solid. It's not earth-shattering, but it gets the job done every single time. You can count on Flanagan's. Flanagan's will not have a stupid false start. Flanagan's will not hit you with an unsportsmanlike conduct or a personal foul late in the game and cost you a game or cost you field position. Flanagan's will take a knee and run the clock out and take a win. Okay? Flanagan's knows what to do. You go in there, you know you're going to get the same kind of ribs everywhere you go. The wings are solid. They're not great, but they're good. Best clam chowder, my favorite clam chowder. You know, I know you love the Dolphin Francaise, right? The tuna hoagie is a monster. So you've got some great things on the menu. Everything is solid. You can't go wrong with Flanagan. So thank you, Inez, for shedding light across the country as to the institution that Flanagan is.
I'm doing this work for The Athletic. The only reason I'm asking about restaurant recommendations is because they want to do sort of a city profile. Miami's an important city. We're hosting the World Cup games, several World Cup games here. Of course, the National Championship game is here. So getting athletes to share their recommendations is important. That'll be coming out.
Did you ask Carson Beck?
I asked Carson Beck. Carson Beck, of course, the quarterback, has a big NIL deal, and he went with Gecko, which is off Brickell Avenue in Miami, a sushi Japanese steakhouse. He's a big fan of their tuna roll. Also gets a filet. Doesn't eat shellfish. Didn't know this about Carson Beck, but he admitted today he does not eat shellfish. He's allergic to it. So he can't go to Flanagan's with his boys and eat shrimp and clams and whatever else. But he is a big fan of Gecko. and I've never been to Gecko. I looked at the
I've never heard.
prices.
The only gecko I've ever heard of is the Geico gecko, and he saves me 15%. So I'm good
Oh,
with that guy. It's
I
also
think it's
ironic that he's loves gecko, which some people say kind of looks like.
well over $100 a plate there for meals.
Of course,
Malachi
bougie,
Tony,
bougie.
yes, Malachi Tony. You know what his favorite place is?
I don't know.
Island Tings. Island Tings.
Island Tings. I texted you once about that place in Pines. I was like, "Is this any good? Have you been there?"
Yes, Joanna, my wife, is a huge fan of Island Tings, loves the spicy Caribbean food. Malachi Tony is a big fan of oxtails and rice.
So
At
am I. So am I.
Yes,
My wife makes great oxtail and rice, but she doesn't. She doesn't make it spicy because she's allergic.
I didn't share what Inez Cooper liked at Flanagan's, by the way. He is a big fan of the honey barbecue chicken tenders and the rockin' rib rolls. Every Thursday, Carlos, he and the offensive line, or not every Thursday, he says they either go to Flanagan's or they go to Captain Crab to eat some seafood, which I'm a fan of seafood. You obviously are as well, being a fisherman. But they get 4 plates of rockin' rib rolls every Thursday, him and the offensive line, plus the chicken tenders. I mean,
You
can
can't
you
go
eat it?
wrong.
You can't go wrong. But could you eat that much food? Do you think you could
Hell
down
no. Hell no.
between you and 4 of your friends or a few of the other offensive linemen
No. But
4 plates of rock and rib rolls?
back in the day, I used to hit that Wing It Wednesday hard, bro. I used to go in there with friends, and buddy, when you would get a free 10 wings with a pitcher of beer, I would go in there and hit a good 5 pitchers or 6 pitchers with friends, and we wouldn't leave any wings behind. And listen, greatest deal on earth back in the day.
Francis Maui Noah, big fan of Havana Harry's, which is currently closed. I didn't even know that. Havana
Damn, I
Harry's
didn't
in
know that either.
Coral
That's a
Gables.
good restaurant though.
Yeah, big fan of tostones as it reminds him of home. Plantains, rice, beans. He's a big fan of that. And I asked him for a breakfast spot. He said Deli Lane in South Miami.
Deli Lane is good. Deli Lane is
Corned beef
good.
hash. He says
Yeah.
Polynesians are big on corned beef, which I didn't know. I didn't know Polynesians were big on
I didn't
corned
know
beef.
they were either, but I mean, I love a good corned beef hash, and Deli Lane's got some good stuff.
I'll tell you what, we got a unique football team because you basically got every flavor in the book there, right? You got Caribbean, you got Cuban, you got American with Flanagan's, the good old American food, and then you got the Japanese steakhouse from Carson Beck. So good selection there from the offensive players being able to share their thoughts with us, Carlos. Let's dive into the Syracuse game. Let's start there because I thought, look, it was 0-0 until about 5 minutes left in that ball game, Carlos, and ultimately Miami decided to start going to some other receivers that they normally don't throw the football to. There was a big 41-yard gain. I think it was to Dalen Upshaw, who I don't know if that was his first catch of the year, but it's definitely one of the first ones. You look at the stats for this game. I'm going to try to put them on here on the screen here in a second. But, you know, they didn't dominate until really the second half, which is what you and I sort of predicted. We thought that you know, this would be another sort of slow start performance. What did you ultimately take away from that game and the way that Miami played?
It was just so slow offensively. It was same old stuff coming in, and then eventually they opened it up, and you saw the results. I mean, to me, it's really strange that the team really didn't outgame Syracuse by that much. It was sort of it was just strange. It just didn't feel like they were in control of the game. Like they couldn't put their foot on Syracuse's neck and really explode and take it to the next level. It took, you know, that big play and a fumble late in the second quarter to be able to get up 14-0, and then an interception to sort of seal it there to get into the half. You know, yeah. I think Syracuse also missing a bunch of guys with injury, and it just was a performance that was underwhelming. It reminded me a lot of that Stanford game, and they just couldn't get to that dominant level like they did in the fourth quarter against Stanford. I'm just happy other guys got involved. I'm happy they opened up the playbook a little bit. I'm also happy that you know, your boy Shannon Dawson listened to me a little bit. Wow, a little wildcat with Malachi Tony. Did we see that? Did we see them spreading the ball to other receivers? Did we see some trick plays getting thrown in? Did we see you know, my boy Pringle getting some carries that I said he should get to get some explosiveness there in the edge?
Yeah.
But you know, Shannon Dawson is not a confirmed listener to the podcast, but I think after the Saturday we can confirm he is. That and 2 weeks ago when he was going off as if he was talking to me to the press.
Miami outgained Syracuse 385-285, so they outgained them by 100 yards, win the game by 28 points. Weren't able to cover the spread, which was 28.5, because Syracuse scored a late touchdown. I thought what was interesting, Fran Brown and Mario Cristobal sort of exchanging words in the middle of that game. I look at it as just two shit talkers. People don't realize this. Mario's very calm now because he's in his mid 50s, but as a player, and a younger guy, he would get into his fair share of fisticuffs. You just asked our boy Kelvin Harris about him and his brother, Mario's older brother, and the fisticuffs that they would get into on campus at Miami. So I don't know that Mario would ever cross midfield to go and punch somebody like Fran Brown in the face, but I'm sure he wants to.
No, I would want him too. Fran Brown reminds me of Tupac's character in Juice. That he's just that so like brash, annoying. What's up, Raheem? Like it's really annoying. He's just what a dick that guy is. But hey, listen, he's trying to build this program. He's trying to be, bring the bravado from the top down. And I understand it. Listen, I get it. He said they had Miami running scared. They had him about to quit. Bullshit. But he has to feed his program something. To me, the disappointing part for the Hurricanes was they could not again dominate on the ground. Averaging under 4 yards a carry, under 150 yards rushing against a bad Syracuse defense. This team was giving up 31 points a game, not very good overall, and just really didn't do anything spectacular on offense. It took a few big plays, some short fields and things to get them rolling. The time of possession was pretty much equal. If it wasn't for the turnovers, they don't get these points. So it's weird to me. It's just weird performance by the offense. And the hope is that, they take some sort of a lesson from this game, carry it over to the next one, and start using some of the stuff they used late in the second half, start the game, and then keep stomping on somebody's neck.
There was one stat that I looked up that absolutely blew me away. I looked it up in the middle of the game, and it was right after Keelan Marion went on that 61-yard touchdown catch. Did you know that was only the third play this season that Miami has had on offense of over 50 yards? Last year, they had 11 plays. And obviously, it's a different offense. We've talked about Carson Beck and how his stuff a lot of it is underneath. But it's incredible to me that when you look at that number, it sort of stands out. Like, these guys have to go 10 plays, 75 yards almost every time to score. And if you're getting false start penalties and holding penalties and just dumb penalties, that's why they're having so much trouble scoring. I mean, it's obvious. We watch the games, but when you look at the statistics and you look at the numbers, you're like, that was only the third play of 50 yards or more.
Yeah, I didn't know the exact
telling.
number. I knew it wasn't many. We talked about it a few weeks ago. They lack explosiveness in the offense. That was my main concern after game 3, game 4 was they weren't getting explosive plays. They weren't getting big plays in the offense. And without that kind of stuff, then you have to do exactly what you just said. You're going to have to drive down the field methodically, take your time, and then after a 10-play drive, hope to punch it in and not settle for a field goal.
Yep.
The other thing is it's like it doesn't have to be that 60-yard bomb. You could, like we've talked about, throw it underneath and let these guys make plays on their own. Make a guy miss and go. So there's other ways to get to those big plays. It just hasn't happened for them.
I think one of those ways is Gerard Pringle, number 22, the freshman. You saw him. Who would have thought, right? 19-yard run was the longest run of the game for Miami. 7 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. I thought to me he was the most important development of the season. And I know it's Syracuse. Like, hold your horses, Manny. There's tougher teams down the road here. But you need
they haven't had that
else.
Against anybody all season.
You need somebody else besides Malachi Toney for the defense to be afraid of. And look, CJ Daniels could be back this week. Mario mentioned that he could be back this week. I think OJ Frederick could be back this week. We know for sure Mark Fletcher is not back. But when you look at the running game, Marty Brown, 8 carries, 40 yards, average 5 yards a carry. Jordan Lyle is just giving you nothing. 7 carries for 17 yards, 2.4 yards a touch. Pringle's averaging 8 yards a touch, or average 8 yards a touch in that game. To me, that was the most important development, him emerging. And then number 2, the fact that Shannon Dawson is like, yeah, we can't just pound the rock. We're not a good running team with the A gap. We need to be creative. We need to start doing more to keep the other team off balance. And again, I think part of that is the head coach. I think part of that is the head coach and the way he likes to play and maybe putting the handcuffs on his offensive coordinator. But I'm glad that going into this game against NC State, we've seen some level of change. And look, they don't beat Syracuse soundly without making those adjustments in the second half.
No, it took the trick plays. It took everything that we've talked about them doing and starting to roll out a little bit. So I'm glad Mario had the earpiece in and was listening to the podcast, and it took him to the second half to get to the point where we're discussing. running and stuff, or other
Uh,
shows that he's listened to. But again, like you said, it's important that they take this thing that they've learned about themselves, which I don't know why it took this long to learn, and bring it to the next game immediately. Spread the ball out to other receivers, give guys opportunities to make plays, draw things up for specific receivers, move guys around. Like I would love to see more Pringle and Tony in the backfield together in a two-back set, going three wide, and having those guys match up on linebackers, and also maybe running crossbuck, doing some wildcat stuff with Tony again out of that sort of alignment, and seeing what happens.
I think the one area that we need to sort of acknowledge here is the fact that they basically have 6 offensive linemen, and I don't know that that's been the key to disrupting flow and why we're seeing false starts and why we're seeing sort of the pre-snap penalties, but clearly Okunlola has his strengths and Matthew McCoy has his strengths or things that he does consistently well. This is what I'm showing you on screen here is the pass blocking grades for the Syracuse game and the snap counts. You've been on a football team. How often do you have switching in the sense of this much 32 snaps for one guy, 26 for another at one position? I've seen it where maybe somebody comes in and gives a guy a breather, but to go a whole season where you're basically splitting one of your 5 jobs, do you at all, Carlos, as a conspiracy theorist like I am, think that is why we're having some of the issues Miami's having some of the issues that they do with pre-snap penalties, etc.?
No, I don't think that's it at all. I think the guy that commits most of those is Markel Bell. I think Ernest Cooper's might be maybe second behind that. So to me, that's not it. I think the reason you rotate guys in and out is because you're not certain of that guard position. I think they try to play the hot hand. They've got a competition going that's lasted all season long. They want to get Okunlola on the field because they don't want him to transfer. They want him to remain here so they could play him at tackle next year. So they're trying to get him snaps, and those are the reasons why they're rotating those guys in and out. And they don't fully trust Matthew McCoy, which I don't either. He had an okay game here against Syracuse. That's not the norm. It's like one good game for every 3 bad that he has. And Okunlola was, according to the numbers here, bad in pass protection for the first time, I think, all season. It was the worst game he probably had all season in terms of pass protection. Right. So the false starts are not based on the rotations. It's based on just mental errors. And I think what ends up happening to Markel Bell is because I've said, like at the beginning, he doesn't have great feet. It has to be within his zone of influence. He's a big dude, so it's hard to get around him. But if he's dealing with a guy in a wide 9, which Syracuse was doing, and also guys trying to use the speed rush around him, his feet aren't great. So he tends to try and get a little anxious and get out of his set quicker.
We spend a lot of time talking about the offense because they're underwhelming, right? They're not as good as they were last year, and that's the problem area. And you always end up talking about problems more than anything else. But I wanted to get to Miami's defense because they had 7 sacks in this game. And, Wesley Basaint only ended up playing 15 to 20 snaps. You had Popo Aguirre start. I think he ends up with 9 tackles between, assists and solos. And
something else we talked about earlier in the year.
Yeah. In the end, though, the pressure, they got to the quarterback, Carlos. And, we've talked about how good they are at putting pressure on opposing teams, but finishing and actually getting sacks. Granted, again, this is Syracuse. This is one of the worst teams in the ACC. They don't have their regular starting quarterback, Steve Angeli. They were 3-1 with Angeli, and I think they haven't won a game since he's been out. So take it in context. But you continue to get tremendous plays from guys like Keontae Scott. I thought, the secondary, especially Damari Brown, Xavier Lucas, those guys are playing a lot more. We mentioned OJ Frederic being injured. They're getting more run here these last couple games. Takeaways on the defense overall.
Listen, they've been a dominant group all season. They've been exactly what Miami needed. Thank God for them, because if not, this season could have gone sideways. This could easily be a 7-5, 6-6 team if they had the defense from last year. They would not win some of the games they've won this season if it wasn't for that defense shutting the door on opponents, and they've done a great job of that. I was happy to see Bain get a sack finally. For the team to get 7 total sacks, it felt like the whole LeBron thing when he won the title with the Heat for the first time. It's about damn time, right? Things are paying off.
Yes.
And let me just continue to say, man, this guy, Keontae Scott, is the second best defensive player on that team. And it's not even close. That dude is a monster. He's great in coverage. He's great at the line of scrimmage, making tackles. He's great as a blitzer. He's an aggressive dude that's everywhere. And he's a do-it-all guy. He's a Swiss Army knife. I love that guy.
Yeah, nickelback position super important in this defense. Corey Heatherman has talked about that. There's some rumors on the internet that Keontae Scott got injured in this last game and won't be playing. I don't know that to be the case. We will see when the ACC releases its injury reports. But in the event that he is not able to go against NC State, which is one of the better offenses in the ACC, I don't want to use the F word, Carlos, but Miami's effed if
Yeah,
Keontae Scott is not playing in that game because
that's not
I
good.
don't know who slots in there and does as good a job as he does.
There's no one. I mean, if we're talking about if this was baseball and we're looking at wins against replacement, we're looking at WAR. He and Bain have the highest WAR on the team. At least with Bain, you would have still Mesidor out there on the field to complement the other side. But here, there's nobody that's going to replace him and play the way he plays, or at least come
Mm-hmm.
close to it in that nickel spot.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to Saturday. Talk a little bit about NC State before we look at the ACC big picture and the college football playoff race because we did mention Miami moved up 3 spots to number 15, and Miami fans are suddenly happy. They're like, "Oh my God, they're in the playoff field. They'd be number 11." No, that's the ACC champion, and we know Miami's a long shot. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's look ahead to Saturday against NC State because Dave Doran's team over the years, Carlos, has been very good as an underdog. You go back to 2013. NC State is 10-26 as a road underdog. Not great. They're better as a home underdog, but more road wins as an underdog in the ACC since 2013 than Miami, who's 7-15. I'm going to put these stats up here in a second so that the rest of you can see it. But initial thoughts here on NC State as we start to dive in on them and the matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, to me, NC State's always been, or under Doran, they've been a very good defensive team. This year, they're not that. They're more of an explosive offense. They've had to get into shootouts to be able to win games, which is different. It's a different style for them. The other thing about NC State is they play that 3-3-5. So it's going to be a different look for Miami, something they haven't seen a lot this season, if at all. So they're going to have to be ready for the different types of blitz packages that NC State's going to bring because that 3-3-5 presents unique challenges in the angles they bring the blitzes from and how they use guys in that front. You would expect a 3-3-5 team to be bad against the run, whereas NC State this year isn't that bad against the run. They're giving up 132 yards a game, but only 4.1 yards a carry, so it's not bad. Their secondary, though, isn't great. They've given up 292 yards a game. So could be one of those games where NC State decides to load the box, sell out, blitz, attack Carson Beck, and make him try to beat you with the one-on-one matchups, find the guys. And I think that's what they're going to ultimately do.
This is the Miami offense against the NC State defense. You can see the stat differentials. There's no reason Miami's offense should have a bad day against these guys, even with the 3-3-5. You just look at the numbers purely. This is not a good team at creating sacks or pressures. This is the kind of game where if the offense struggles, you shake your head at the offensive coordinator for sure. And we know how important winning the next 3 games is for Miami. This is like inexcusable, right? If you struggle against this defense.
Listen, this defense is basically doing the Ole thing. They are a matador, just letting the Bulls run right through them. And I'm not talking about groupies for the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. I'm not talking about Madonna and Scottie Pippen and Jordan, but this is an opportunity for this offense to make another statement, right? To go out there and take a step and use some of the things they learned from the previous game and put up 40 some odd points. This is a game they need to be able to put their foot down and beat a team soundly and say, listen, this team beat Georgia Tech, which is one of the top teams in the conference. We just smoked them. Okay.
Right.
We don't have that head to head with Georgia Tech, but if we have this common opponent, we got to show off that we're better than they are. And this is how we do it. We slam the door shut on that conversation.
NC State's offense a little better. You look at a lot of the green areas there on the left-hand side for the column, yards per play, rushing yards per game, passing yards per game, CJ Bailey and company. I'm going to take a look at some of their individual offensive statistics here in a second. But, that's the one area, and we talked about it beforehand. They can score points. If you don't have Keontae Scott for whatever reason, which, again, it's kind of an unspecified rumor that's out there right now, or an unconfirmed rumor, that he's going to miss this game. If you don't have Keontae Scott, it puts more pressure on you to perform. But CJ Bailey is a very good quarterback, and I would venture to say Miami's going to be taking a close look at him and hoping to God maybe that they can pull him out of the portal next year if he decides to enter. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. That's one of my stories this week for the Athletic. Guys that are probably going to be entering the portal because they don't have starting jobs and the coaching changes. You have 9 Power 4 schools without a head coach right now. So there's going to be a lot of movement of players starting January 2nd when the portal opens. But CJ Bailey is a guy that if you're Mario and you're like, damn, we can get our hands on that guy for the future. That's somebody who could come in right away and really, really help you out. This is the numbers he's been putting up this season. This is from ESPN. You can take a closer look at that. But completing over 70% of his passes, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks out of Hollywood, Chaminade Madonna, a guy that Miami tried to kick the tires on late, wasn't able to convince to stay home. But look, this NC State team overall got some receivers that are decent, not super. I think Justin Jolie, their tight end, is probably their most dangerous guy. Hollywood Smothers missed the last game. I don't know that he is going to play in this game. They've got a redshirt freshman who came in against Georgia Tech and had a huge day. So that's what you look at. But from a CJ Bailey perspective, Carlos, if you had to pick a quarterback right now for 2026, who is it?
Listen, it's hard to pass up on CJ Bailey. It depends on who else is out there in the field. I mean, I think DJ Lagway can still be a great quarterback if he decides to leave Florida and is in the right system. I don't know. Other guys that maybe 4 or 5 stars that are sitting on the bench right now playing a backup role on the team, right, like an Alabama, like a Michigan, those Oregon, things of that nature. But I think CJ Bailey would be the most natural fit just because of his South Florida connections, the fact that he, has lineage here with the Hurricanes, grew up a fan, I believe. If not, I'm wrong. Somebody will tell me in the comments. But my biggest concern coming into this weekend is the Willie Burton effect, like I talked about last weekend. He might be pissed off, or he might want to audition for the Hurricanes and say, you know what, you're going to recruit me next year. I'm going to come down there, but first I'm going to put up 404 on you.
Yeah. I'm going to mention some of the quarterbacks because, again, I'm writing about this in our buzz for next week. But you mentioned some guys that are sitting on the bench. Kenny Minchie at Notre Dame obviously lost a job to C.J. Carr. Might be somebody that enters the portal. Lincoln Kineholtz at Ohio State lost a job to Julian Sane, who's a sophomore, and then Austin Novosad at Oregon is the backup to Dante Moore. So you talk about 5-star guys. Deuce Knight at Auburn. Auburn obviously fired their head coach. He's going to be a priority for their school to sign. Some other names, in terms of guys that are probably could be entering the portal. Nico Iamaleava at UCLA. I know that's home for him. You mentioned Lagway already. Malik Murphy at Oregon State lost a starting job there. Jackson Arnold, not a Miami guy. I mean, Michael Van Buren, backup at LSU for Nussmeier. He transferred over from Mississippi State. I know Miami kicked the tires on him some, and then you got all the G6 guys: Colton Joseph at Old Dominion, Alonzo Barnett, the starting quarterback at James Madison for the last 2 years. James Madison's 8-1. They have a chance to make the playoff, an outside chance. So, and then Drew Mestamaker from North Texas, redshirt freshman, put up huge numbers. So those are all potential guys. And again, Miami could just decide, go with Emory Williams or one of their young quarterbacks on the roster now. But I think it's a fun conversation certainly to have, Carlos, in terms of what could potentially happen here for the program and what they decide to do in the offseason.
So 2 things. One, I want to see them, like we talked about last week, get Luke Nickel in the last few games, see what he could do in terms of adding something, a run dimension to the offense. And defensively, I think the Hurricanes, if Keontae Scott can't play, it's going to be a problem. They're going to have to look at Keenan Jackson and Justin Jolly in the slot, and that's going to be a matchup problem, especially with Jolly because he's their second best receiver.
Yeah. All right. So we've sort of broken down the last game, the upcoming game. I wanted to get quickly to the college football playoff and AP rankings just to sort of discuss it. I mentioned Miami moving up 3 spots to number 15 past Georgia Tech. The issue here for me, and I'm going to get to this quickly, Carlos, is Miami obviously has to win out. So if they lose any game, we know this is all bullshit. There's no reason for us to even discuss it further. We're assuming Miami's going to win their last 3 games when we have this conversation. The problem for them that I see is, Notre Dame's too far ahead of them. I think they're screwed. Notre Dame's probably going to win out. They're not going to be able to skip past Notre Dame, even if they have the same record. Number 2, Utah which is 2 spots ahead of them, has a pretty weak schedule to end the season. Vanderbilt's toughest test down the road is Tennessee. You got to leapfrog both of those teams for sure. And then BYU only has one loss. They got to play at Cincinnati. And then this weekend, I think Texas and Oklahoma are both losing. I think Texas is playing at Georgia. Oklahoma's at Alabama. They're not going to win those games. So
No.
Miami's going to move up further. The issue really here as we move forward is the BYUs, the Utahs, and the Vanderbilts of the world, which in all honesty, I don't get it. Vanderbilt doesn't really have any great wins. Utah certainly doesn't. BYU's best win, I think, is over Utah. So it's like, I'm very interested to see what happens here in the coming weeks. Miami's got to hold up their end of the bargain, but I'm hoping that this committee continues to evolve. It was a good thing that they moved Miami past Georgia Tech because that at least tells you that, hey, they're respecting strength of schedule here. But I think for Miami's purposes, if you're really going to have a shot, you need some upsets. You need BYU to lose. You need Utah to lose to somebody they're not supposed to. And you need Vanderbilt to lose to somebody that they're probably not
Yeah,
expected to
maybe,
lose to.
and even an Oregon loss. I don't think their test schedule's too tough, or Texas Tech loss down the road would help. What you don't want is a loss by Alabama or Georgia to Texas
Yes,
and Oklahoma, because then that screws you. They're going to be locked in to get into the
absolutely.
playoff, and there's no space available.
Yeah. So this weekend's games, you're like, what do I do? What game should I be paying attention to? Those are the ones that I would tell you right off the bat. Make sure you're watching. Does Miami still have a chance at making the ACC championship game after last week's upsets? You had Louisville lose at home to Cal. You had Virginia lose at home to Wake Forest. The answer is yes, but it's not a great chance. I'm going to put on a graphic here of the ACC race, and you can see the 5 teams that are 5-1 or 4-1, and really, you got some huge games here in the coming weeks. Virginia at Duke this week is going to be monumental to that ACC race.
Yeah,
Right now, as it stands, Virginia and Georgia Tech win out. They make it into the college football playoff, or not the playoff, but the ACC championship game. Georgia Tech's biggest opponent left on the schedule is Pittsburgh at home. And then Duke has Virginia at home this week, so they win that. It sort of pushes Duke out of the equation. Pittsburgh's still in it. They got to play Miami and Georgia Tech, and certainly SMU is very much still in it. But I put the opponent win percentage, the ACC opponent win percentage there, because those are the ultimate tiebreakers if those teams haven't played each other head to head. So
yeah.
that's
What I
kind
see
of the
here
way
is
the race looks.
you're rooting for Manny Diaz this weekend. You want him to beat Virginia, then you want him to lose to Pitt, or eventually, or who's it that they have left?
Well, they would have North Carolina. You're rooting for Bill Belichick or
Yeah,
Wake Forest to pull it
which
off against Duke.
Wake is playing very well right now after beating SMU and beating Louisville.
Right.
So
I don't know that either of those teams have enough offense to really get it done. I think
no,
Duke is in. I think right now, if you were to ask me who do I put $100 on and getting to the ACC championship game, Carlos, I
Virginia,
would
Georgia
say
Tech.
Duke is definitely one of those teams because I think all of the matchups right now. I mean, Virginia's without their quarterback this week. Chad Morris, his kid, what is it? His name Chad Morris. I forget the name of the quarterback for Virginia. I know it's a Morris. He got banged up.
Andrew
I think he
Morris.
had a Chandler Morris. There you go. Yes, he had a concussion. I think in that game that knocked him out. I don't know whether or not he's playing this week. Either way, he's coming back from that foggy condition if he does play. Duke is at home. They score a lot of points, and I know it's terrible for the ACC because Duke's got 4 losses. They lost to UConn. They're 5-4. But when you look at the
Which,
race,
hey,
it's like
UConn's a good team. They're 7-2.
they're 7-3, yes, but you're right. I mean, look, the bottom line is the ACC is getting shat on by a lot of people. That's
Oh yeah,
why I mean Miami's kind of the highest ranked team because they're the one team they sort of respect because of their win over Notre Dame and USF. But it's the road here to the ACC championship game and the road to the playoff has some obstacles left for Miami. The good news is some of those obstacles have already lost games.
yeah. So you want Duke to take care of business against Virginia this week, then lose later against Wake Forest. You want another loss for SMU. You're going to have to beat Pitt. You need Pitt to do some work for you as well. It's going to be very confusing. At the end of the day, it's just about win all the games you can, and then let everything else fall where they may. And you got to win in dominating fashion.
You really do. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. There was an interesting top thread on ACC Reddit, the college football Reddit, which I check out every now and then because I'm always interested to see what fans have to say. There was a Georgia Tech fan who did all the mathematical calculations of sort of who has the easiest path or figuring out like the odds. And you look at it here, he simulated all 24 ACC games left on the schedule. And this is how it sort of breaks down. Miami was at 1.33% of getting in. They're in seventh place right now because of that loss to SMU.
So you're saying there's a chance.
But so there's a chance. Mathematically, there's still a chance of it happening. I think this might have been done actually right before last week's game, so they might have changed a little bit. But still, going into last week, not good, not good for Miami, Carlos. All right, let's shift the conversation here to recruiting for a second, if we can. Miami, I know right now most of us don't want to talk about it. You know, you got signing day, I guess, in a little over 3 weeks, 4 weeks away. Mario has the 11th ranked class in the 247 Sports Composite. He's had the number one class in the ACC now, I think 3 or 4 years running. So it is somewhat more important now, especially in light that they've picked up 3 commitments here in the last few days, flipping guys that were committed elsewhere. You're going to put up the recruiting rankings really quick. This is the ACC for 247 Sports. 28 commitments in Miami's class. 18 of them are 4 stars. One of them is a 5-star. We know the offensive tackle from Missouri who's coming over. That's 19 of the 28 guys in the class are blue chippers. You compare it. I mean, I'm shocked that Florida State has the second best class with Mike Norvell in the situation he's in with 5 losses and everybody breathing down his neck. North Carolina, look, Bill Belichick has started to turn things around there a little bit on the field. They've won a few games here in the ACC, could be bowl eligible by the end of the season. They've got 35 commitments. A lot of their class is that. But Clemson, that's a telling stat to me, man, that they are 4th. Dabo Sweeney, his last year's recruiting class was not good, Carlos, for Clemson. And this was supposed to be his team this year. I mean, when you think about it, brother, Florida State's down. Florida fired its coach. Clemson is comiendo mierda, as we like to say in Spanish.
Yeah.
I mean, this feels like we talked about last year being a blown opportunity for Miami with Cam Ward and not being able to win with him. This year is not far behind, considering everything sort of falling into place for Miami.
Yeah, and you know it shows how far Clemson has fallen. Right, they were the elite program in the ACC for so many years, and it goes back to not being able to get a quarterback a lot of times. You know, they're although their defense isn't playing well this year, Kate Klubnik ain't it, right? And Uyunglele, when he was there, wasn't it. And it's been a while since they've had a quarterback to drive the offense and get them to where they needed to go. Florida State, they do a great job recruiting. It is what it is. That's what they do. You know, when they get a new head coach in there, Miami has to take advantage of this window. I think they have to keep Mike Norvell for another year, so it's not that expensive. It's going to be expensive, but not as expensive to fire him, unless they're waiting to the end of the season to do that. I anticipate he'll probably be back next year for one more year, and then they'll get rid of him. Whatever coach steps in there is going to get stepped in with a lot of talent, and then the ability to use the transfer portal also is going to backfill a lot of the stuff that they lose during the transition. So Miami has a window here to make some noise, right? They've got Clemson down. North Carolina is rebuilding the program through Bill Belichick, so it's going to take a couple years for them to start being elite again if they start recruiting this way. Clemson is on the downswing. Who knows how long Dabo is going to last there? But ultimately, you're getting beat by programs that aren't even on the same level with you talent-wise.
Yep.
Right? Look at SMU. They're 6th in the conference right now, and that's an improvement. Louisville, below SMU. Those are the 2 losses they have this year. So not only do you have to win these recruiting battles and get this talent on board, you have to start developing these guys. You have to start being more effective in terms of how you coach and how you retain talent and improve your talent. Make them get better over time. It can't just be all or nothing in the transfer portal.
Yeah. Some of the guys Miami's flipped here in the last few days. We've gotten three defensive pickups. Isaac Chukura, kid out of Delaware, was committed to Penn State. Obviously, Penn State had the coaching change. High 3-star guy, number 506 in the class there. Good pickup for Miami. 6'2", 265. Probably going to continue to grow a little bit more and be bigger than that, Carlos. But defensive line, I think, was one area that they were certainly trying to add talent. One of the big pickups also for Miami recently, D'Anthony Lafayette, edge rusher, 6'1", 230 out of Orlando Lake, known a 4-star kid. Good pickup for Miami, a guy that I think is a good locker room leader from what I've heard. You talk about having to replace Ruben Bain and Akeem Mazador, and you've got young guys on this defensive line right now that I think are going to step up into those roles. But you have to keep replenishing what you've got every single year, because you don't know who's going to go on the portal, and it just every single year you're going to lose guys. You got to keep sure, but again, who knows? 17, 18 years old, hopefully continues to grow. And then the big pickup for Miami recently is J.J. Dunnigan, former Kansas State commitment out of Manhattan, Kansas, 4-star guy in the secondary, cornerback. We talked about the secondary guys like Keontae Scott, Jacoby Thomas, the transfers that came in, the impact they've had, but you need to keep, sort of stacking. I think OJ Frederick and, some of the other young guys that they've brought in that'll be back next year. It's going to be great to have them, but you got to continue to bring in talent that can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that they're flipping some guys. I'm sure there'll be more flips by the end of the recruiting period, just as other teams continue their downslide and Miami continues to rise. If they get into the playoff or they're in position just to get in there even after the 2 losses, I think that's going to help.
All right. One thing I wanted to bring up, Carlos, I put something on Twitter yesterday regarding the penalties, situation, because Miami fans have been apoplectic about how much they're getting screwed on calls. We talked about
that is a great use of the word apoplectic, by the way.
Yes. So I did some research. I said, let me dive down the rabbit hole here and see how screwed is Miami, right? And so I looked up these stats. This is penalty margin via True Media, okay? And the teams you see highlighted in yellow are all teams in the top 25 college football playoff rankings. Miami is plus 33 in penalties in terms of in college football when you take into account offense, defense, and special teams penalties. Now, while Miami fans certainly should be angry about that, hey, we're maybe not getting a fair shake when it comes to these things. I decided to take a deeper dive, Carlos, and say, well, where are all those penalties? Without the research, Carlos, how much of this do you think is related to pre-snap penalties on offense versus Miami just getting screwed?
I would say at least 40% of pre-snap penalties.
It's probably a really good guess, Carlos. In fact, I'm trying to go to
well, right here on this list, if you look at the offensive penalties, they're number 4 on this list in terms of offensive penalties committed.
Correct.
Which is a ridiculous amount.
So I looked it up, okay? 17 false starts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
4 offsides. I think you have a couple of other I think what is it? The illegal snaps. I think they've got 5.
26.
When you do, well, I have the numbers. Let me look it up here exactly. I just don't have the chart exactly where it's supposed to be. When you look it up, Carlos, it turns out to be 33 pre-snap penalties out of the 69. Okay, so if you just take away all of the pre-snap penalties, which is impossible, but if you take that away, it's even, right? Instead of being plus 33, suddenly you're even when it comes to all the when you take away the
pre-snap. It's roughly 48% of the penalties. So I was close.
In the end, a lot of this is self-inflicted, but the one stat that I think jumped out to me a little bit, okay, is opponent holding, because I looked up how often have Miami's opponents been called for holding. What do you think that number is? How often do you think Miami's opponents been called for holding penalties?
The entire season?
Yes.
6.
It's a good guess, but here's the answer. These are the teams that are at the top of the charts in terms of Miami's gotten 4 offensive holding penalties called on opponents this season. Now, before you lose your shit and say, oh my God, that's not fair, you got Ruben Bain and Akeem Mazador, those guys should be doing better, I wanted you to be able to compare it to everybody else. Texas Tech has one of the best defensive lines in the country. People think it might be the best. They've gotten 6 offensive holding penalty calls. Oklahoma, 6, also leading the country, I think, in sacks per game. Indiana, we know they're number 2 in the country. The stat blew me away. Look at Ohio State at the top of that list. 1 penalty in the opener against Texas. Look, Miami got 2 holding penalties on Syracuse this last game. They were at 2 until last week. I've always heard referees say you could call holding on every play.
Yeah.
I've heard coaches say that. But does this scream to you like, hey, maybe the wheels aren't balanced, especially when Miami's offensive line's been called 10 times for holding?
No, because holding calls in general, for them to be made, have to be obvious. And it has to be, remember, in the line of sight of the official. Sometimes when the ball goes away, it's hard to make that call. You can't see it. The official turns his eyes. And most holding is subtle, and it happens as the person's coming by. They release at the last second before the official catches it. You know, like you said, most plays, if not all plays, have holding going on, right? By the offensive line. They're trained to do that. Right. They're trained to get their hands under your pads and lock in and literally grip under your pads and push you that way, right? So sometimes Miami's pressure is so great, they blow by the offensive lineman and they don't get a chance to hold them. That's the other thing, which is what you're seeing with Ohio State, you're seeing with Texas Tech too. They are speed rushing past these guys, or they are using their hand techniques so well that they don't get held. You don't have the ability to hold them because of their technique. They showed that with Bain last week, the way he likes to chop and slap and get through opponents, and also use his speed to rip and dip and get across. So it's also the technique of the defense. If it's a straight bull rush and you're engaging and trying to get around, then it becomes more obvious because the offensive lineman's arms are more likely to slip and catch you around the neck, and that's easier to see as a hold.
This is the actual breakdown. I took a screenshot of this now so I could share it with you guys because I went through every single game. And you can do this research on your own too. You just got to go to the live stats page and it'll break it all down to you, offensive, defensive penalties. But 17 false starts on Miami, 9 for their opponents. You see the offensive holding, 10 for Miami, 4 for their opponents. Unnecessary roughness, 4 on Miami, 0 on their opponents. This doesn't include special teams, which is, I know the separation is 33 for Miami, but just offensive and defensive penalties. Is there anything that stands out to you when you look at this chart, Carlos, besides the pre-snap?
5 delay of games. Why?
Yeah, those are bad.
Why do we have 5 delay of games when you have a headset in the quarterback's helmet where you can easily relay the play? Why do we have 5 delay games? And we saw it against, it wasn't Syracuse, it was against SMU. It happened a couple of times where Dawson's late. What's going on? Like, this is, I saw a YouTube video by John Gruden last week where he was talking about his play sheets and how he had his play sheets ready and how he'd break them down. And he said, like, the worst thing you want to do is not have a call ready. Right? That's why I organize my stuff here. This is why you have the play sheets. You could just go to the sheet. The situation is there. The down and distance is there. You could just pick one of these plays here instead of having to think it through. That's the last thing you want to do, is have to be rummaging and looking for a play instead of having the situation down. After you make, as an offensive coordinator, what you should be doing is you make your call, and then you're immediately thinking about the next play, right? You're thinking, here's one. It could go one of 2 ways. Let's say it's second and 8. All right. I call the run play. It's either going to be third and short, or it's going to be back to third and medium again because we get stuffed. So I already got those 2 calls lined up. What do I want to do? What personnel grouping do I want to be in? Where did I run the football? Did I run it to the right side? Does that mean we're going to be on the right hash? So I know I got to be having my formation ready. You're thinking all those things through. You're talking to the booth if you're on the field and telling them, hey, let me know what's going on with the front. What happened with the secondary in this play? All right. And then you come back to your call sheet and make the play. You have 3 or 4 calls ready to go. There should be no reason we're getting delay games where the guy has a headset in his freaking helmet. Yeah. Especially in crucial situations. In crucial situations, what that tells me is Dawson doesn't know what he's calling, and he has to pull something out of his ass.
That, or there's a lot of interference on his radio call where somebody else is speaking over him. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I looked at Miami's penalty margin under Mario Cristobal, since he took over in 2022. This is the 4 seasons combined, 2022 through this season. They're 8th in penalty margin over that span. I know Miami fans are like, well, this is evidence we're getting screwed every single year. No. I got news for you. I went back. I looked at other seasons. There are seasons where Miami's opponents, not under Mario, but under previous regimes with Manny Diaz, Mark Richt, and others, where Miami was the beneficiary of more calls against their opponents. So it's not always the case, but That's your penalty breakdown. I hope we taught you guys something and shared some information, and we're able to discuss this subject with some level of
Listen,
intelligence.
and here's the main thing, right? I can take pass interference penalties, personal foul penalties that aren't, game breakers. If it's an aggressive one or a stupid call like the one against Lightfoot, against SMU, I can take aggression penalties. Penalties are you're committing because you are aggressive and you're playing hard. Mental errors are unacceptable. False starts, delay of games, illegal motion, illegal formation, especially at this stage of the season, those are unacceptable. You should know what you're doing. You should be prepared to run the play that's going to be called. You should have a play call ready, and you should be ready to execute. That's one, a lack of mental preparedness, right? Mental toughness and preparedness. And two, just not being confident in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to the mailbag, Carlos. We got a lot of different topics. I think people want us to
Good. Let's hit
sort
it.
of. Let's hit it here as I try to find the exact link to all the questions. Bear with me here for a second. But I think your point overall on the penalties, I think Miami's got to coach it better. They got to coach it smarter. How to get the holding penalties on defense.
And the worst part is on offense, this is coming from this guy's specialty.
Right.
This is coming from Mario Cristobal's offensive line, the bulk of the penalty.
So
what are we doing? Mr. Toughness, Mr. Discipline, we build it in our image. Let's get this shit right.
Yep. All right. First question here from Hobby B, JBoy1724, one of our fans. What's up, guys? I made a comment several weeks ago about the style of play offensively creating a lack of confidence in the players, and I was happy to hear Dawson kind of acknowledge that this week. In your opinion, what young guys need to see the field more to give us that spark?
We've talked about Pringle. This other kid that just caught the screen, what's his name? 15.
Upshaw. Yeah.
He's got some speed. You need explosive players in the field. You need guys that can make plays. I think you need to get Keelan Murray more catches. You've got to get this kid Upshaw more on the field. You've got to get Pringle the ball. You've got to not just get guys on the field, but you have to create opportunities for them to get the ball and make plays. And part of that is using mixed personnel groupings, different personnel groupings, formations, and trying to get them the football specifically, not just running something and hoping it comes up.
Right. I think the tight end is just so underutilized. Yeah. And last year with Elijah Arroyo, you had something, but the season before that and the season before that, it just felt like we weren't getting enough production out of it. And to this day, I still don't know why Elijah Lofton isn't playing more. I really don't. He's supposed to be able to carry the ball to the backfield. You go back to Mario's quotes about him in the spring. I mean, this guy was raving about him. We could put him anywhere on the field. He's going to help you. And yet it just feels like they don't know how to use him.
I'm assuming it's because they don't feel he's a good blocker. And that's why they don't play him. And that's the thing. That's the issue they have with Jaleel Skinner, which is why he transferred out. He wouldn't get on the field because he couldn't block. So we're like, oh, you can't block. We're not going to use you at all. And listen, you can have different functions for different guys. Bauman can be your main inline blocker. And you could use Lofton in an H-back role, even put him in the backfield in a fullback spot and use him that way. There's different ways. You got to be versatile with the way you use, like I said, your personnel groupings and the way you use guys. Put guys in a position to succeed. I think I was reading something on Twitter the other day about a high school offense that averages like 70 points a game. They scored 92 points in one game, and they run 8 plays. That's all they run is 8 plays. They're an air raid team. And they run 8 pass concepts, and they'll run like 4 or 5 run concepts. And all they do is do exactly what I talked about. They window dress everything. They change personnel groupings, and they get to the plays they want to get to from different ways and different angles, so you never know what's coming. And they basically say, we're going to be so good at running these 12 to 15 plays that we have overall. I know it's not a lot of plays, but we're going to be so good at running them that you're going to be nowhere near as good as stopping them because you don't prepare the way we do and do it from the different places we do. So to me, it's using your skill sets, identifying what they did in their offense is on their team. They listed their best players 1 through 11 on offense. And regardless of position and who their most explosive guys were, regardless of position, they ranked them and they decided these are the guys we're going to get the ball to. This is the way we're going to do it. And at times they would even shuffle in 2 or 3 quarterbacks in a series because those were their most athletic guys, and they would use them in ways that would benefit the offense. So I'm not saying to do that, but what I'm saying is target the guys that you feel are your most explosive players, the guys that you feel are the big time playmakers, and find ways to get them the football. Draw things up specifically from a play and formation perspective.
Josh Moore probably needs to play more too and
Yeah.
get more balls thrown his way. He's the big body receiver that you're not getting. Again, we'll see. CJ Daniels could be back this week, and maybe that solve some of their issues in the passing game. But all right, a couple more questions here. Jay Boy actually has another one. He says the last time we made the ACC championship was in 2016-17. That team had a lot of draft picks on it. How does that team compare with the current team based on the draft pick expectations of the current team? What are we missing as to why we continue to underachieve? God, I gotta think back to that 2017 team. Majority of their best players were on defense, right? I mean, you had the safeties that got drafted. You had one of their cornerbacks get drafted. I'm trying to think who else. You had a couple D linemen. Um, who else was on that team? Quarterman, linebacker got drafted.
Yeah,
He was like a fifth
Quarterman.
round pick. So
you had Travis Homer.
Yeah.
Mark Walton. Braxton Berrios as a freshman, I believe.
Yeah.
Or was that a senior year? Senior year.
I'm not sure. I got to go back and look at the exact.
Yeah, it was his senior year. Lawrence Cager. Chris Herndon.
Didn't get picked.
Casey McDermott.
Herndon, I think, did, but none of those
Yeah,
guys
Herndon
were.
did get picked. No, I'm listing the NFL guys. Travis Homer.
You had Berrios.
Lawrence Cager's in the NFL or got drafted.
Richards would have been if he didn't get hurt.
Herndon, Casey McDermott, Tyree St. Louis, Michael Badgley, Jonathan Garvin, Joe Jackson, R.J. McIntosh, Chad Thomas.
Right now, there's better first round talent on this team than that team.
I would agree.
I think my issue is there's too many guys that are in their second and third year here that aren't doing anything for Miami. Like, there's guys that are just sitting on this roster that you're like, where's the production? You know, like why did they get beat out for starting jobs? You know,
I think there's a better. I think that staff also did a better job of developing people.
Could have, yeah.
Players to me, because you had a bunch of guys that have been there for a long time that started coming into their own under the Mark Richt regime.
And I think the obvious answer to that too is that there's NIL now. There wasn't NIL then.
Yeah, and I don't think for all the good Mario's done in recruiting, I don't think they do as a staff a great job of developing.
Maybe not. I think people would argue with you and say, well, what about Maui Noah and Cooper and some of the other guys?
I mean, a 5-star that came in and kept being a 5-star. I mean, okay, Cooper, a guy that really he's plateaued in terms of his abilities. He hasn't gotten to be a dominant guy like we expected. You had Basaint come on, and he was supposed to be a superstar. He's never really elevated his game to that level. There's guys that have been on here for a while that really haven't changed who they are. They are who they are. And you've seen the issue at quarterback in terms of Dawson developing guys. He doesn't. They are who they are. They don't change, and then he doesn't coach them up. You had the issue with the receivers for years that they didn't develop either. You know, Beard's done a better job. That doesn't mean they're great. It's just has not been the only guy. I think Jason Taylor's done a really good job with defensive ends. He's helped Bain really take his craft and his technique, and Mesidor as well, so at a different level. He's helped the D tackles a lot as well. But I don't see that development in other areas.
Right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens here in the rest of the season and how many guys actually get drafted off this team. All right. Here's a question from Tua Believer, your favorite, for the Manny eye test. What do your eyes tell you about the offensive line? What do your eyes tell you about players looking at Carson? And what do your eyes tell you about how players look at Mario? Go Canes. And to Carlos, still believing in Tua as long as he wears a Dolphins jersey. What do my eyes tell me about the offensive line? They're not as good at run blocking as they need to be. They're very good at pass blocking. I think there's a disruption between switching your left guard half and half the whole game. I think you block differently. I think it screws up the chemistry of the left tackle and the center sometimes when you have a different guy out there for whatever reason. I think as far as the way players look at Carson, it's not the same way they looked at Cam Ward. Cam Ward was a bona fide leader, a guy who could throw the ball down the field that made them excited in that offense. I think Carson is a different quarterback. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback because I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I just think he's not as good as Cam. And I think Cam played with an edge. And then as far as my eyes tell me about the way guys look at Mario, I think they look at Mario the same way they do a lot of other head coaches in places that are not number one or number two in the country. they're frustrated because they're not getting enough. Some of them are frustrated because they're not getting enough playing time. Some of them absolutely love him. I don't think anybody looks at Mario with on this team as if I don't like this guy. They all decided to come here to play for him. Now, are they happy? All of them? No locker room is, because everybody wants more playing time. Everybody wants to get on the field. Everybody wants to make more money. And if you're not, the reason you might not be making a lot of money in NIL is because you're not playing. And so the way that they are looking at some of those guys looking at them, I'm sure is with disappointment because they wanted more opportunity. But there's a lot of other guys, meanwhile, that are really happy that they got those opportunities and got that money.
Yeah. And, as far as people looking at each other, I don't know. I haven't seen anybody look at Carson Beck longingly and look deeply in his eyes and want to take him off for a walk on the beach and maybe get some sushi at Gecko
Right.
and give them their spicy tuna roll. But the what I will say is I don't think Carson Beck is, like you said, the same kind of leader. I think he has tendencies of throwing guys under the bus. He doesn't seem as accountable to me as Cam Ward was.
Right.
So I think that affects leadership. I think that affects your ability to lead guys. He also doesn't seem to be as ingrained with the team as Cam Ward was. So he seems to swirl himself a little bit separate, I would say, compared to Cam Ward. And I think ultimately, listen, what you need to do as a head coach, regardless of what's going on, but especially when things are rough, is your players have to buy into your vision and into your culture. And that has to be rock solid for you to be able to continue moving forward. And part of what that is you've got to be accountable. You've got to make the hard decisions. And maybe you're right. Maybe that shuffling the left guard thing is causing confusion. It's causing some disruption. And the best thing for the team would be for, one guy to be selected and the other one to sit on the bench. Mm-hmm. But, we're trying to shuffle that in and keep guys happy. I actually saw a video last night on Tony Vitello, who was the Tennessee Volunteers baseball coach who just got hired by the Giants to be their manager. And he was talking about making decisions, knowing what's best for the team and knowing it was going to cause a guy to transfer, to hit the portal, because he ultimately had a responsibility to the team and he had a responsibility to that player to develop him and put him in the best role possible for him to be successful. That would eventually lead to him leaving because, one, it would blow his profile up, and two, he would want a different role the following year. But he did what he had to do regardless of what the outcome was. So I think it's all about having your convictions, being true, being authentic, and honestly doing what's best for the team and the team seeing that.
All fair points. All right, couple more questions, Carlos, and we'll wrap this up quickly. Sam Knowlton, will the offense or defense be pretty good next year? Because we know it's not possible for both of them at the same time. I can't with any certainty say I think the offense is going to be good because you're losing most of your offensive line.
That's a concern.
And you don't know who you're replacing the quarterback with. So those are two huge concerns to me. And I think as good as Malachi Tony is, I still think that he needs somebody else in that receiver core to help him out. I'm not worried about running back, especially if Gerard Pringle is starting to blow up here the next month or so and plays really well. Mark Fletcher, I don't know if he's going to go pro after this year or not. Probably not because of the injury. Kind of hurts his numbers and his stock a little bit. But I think running back, they'll be fine. Tight end remains a mystery to me. What the hell are they going to do there? When is the production going to come through? And you're going to have that position really, really be a strength, not a weakness. So I think the defense, there will be continuity. Yes, they're losing Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor and Keontae Scott and Jacoby Thomas. Those guys are going to be gone. But I think they've done a really good job recruiting on defense. I really think Corey Heatherman is a lot of the things that he's taught has helped alleviate some situations. So I think right now you're to ask me project this team without knowing what they're getting in the transfer portal. I think they're probably a 9-3 team talent-wise next year. But that's without knowing what they're getting in the portal.
I think they'll be better defensively again, just because since you have to replace so much on the offensive line, that's a very difficult position to replace through the portal. And I'm not sure that the guys that they have on the roster right now are good enough to be at the same level they currently are, at least not immediately. I think the other thing is I think you'll probably see Shannon Dawson leave. I think Shannon Dawson is going to try and jump for a head coaching job or another Power 4 offensive coordinator job if it comes up, if somebody decides to hire him. Because I think he's had it here. I think he realizes that he's got to strike while the iron's hot. He should have jumped last year. He had the opportunity. He didn't do it. Said he'd stick another year. I guess he wanted a bigger job, but I think after this season, he's got a goal of becoming a head coach in college football. I think this is a year he jumps either for the head coaching job or for another high-profile OC job.
This question is from Jake Campbell, the one coach soup. Was talking to a friend regarding Mario in Miami, and my take is Mario has Miami right at the door. Typically, getting through that door is painful. Close losses this year and last. Feels very much like Harbaugh and Michigan. They almost fired him, and then boom. Carlos, I know this is a topic near and dear to your heart because you said this already a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Does it feel that way, though, realistically? I mean, do you think Miami is close to winning a championship soon?
I don't, but neither was Harbaugh's Michigan until they did, right? It took a while to figure things out, to get the right combination of coaches and players and system and style to get to that championship. So I think it's going to be like a Harbaugh situation. I said it a couple of years ago. I don't think it's going to be something immediate. It's not going to be something like you see with Cignetti in Indiana, getting this quick, huge turnaround. I think it's a bigger slug, just because of the need to constantly backfill positions on the roster, having to do that with coaches as well. It's a long struggle for this team, but they are. Listen, the good news is we can be doom and gloom, and yes, we criticize the team and we get on them for a bunch of stuff. And this is going to be, if they win 10 games, which I think they should, it's only going to be the third 10-win season in the last 20 some odd years.
Right.
Back-to-back 10-win seasons for the first time in God knows how long. There's progress being made. Now, is it being as quick or at the level that we want it to happen? Not necessarily. If they make the playoff, then I would deem this a successful season at least. If they don't make the playoff, then it's disappointing. So we'll see ultimately where the season lands. But if they get 10 wins, you've made progress. You've got back-to-back 10-win seasons for the first time in a long time. You've got progress being made in the recruiting where you're consistently top 10 in the nation in recruiting again. Now it just comes down to, can they get over the hump and what does that look like? I think more than anything, they have to maybe look at themselves internally and start making adjustments as to, how much control do I have as a head coach in terms of Mario? What do I need to delegate and let go? Am I willing to be more flexible in the system offensively and let those guys do their jobs? And what do I have to improve upon as a head coach and be introspective? Do I need to be a better time manager, a better situational coach? Do I need to put my efforts into that instead of poking my nose in the offense? I think that'll be more beneficial for the team overall if I do that. And also, do I need additional help in terms of general manager or a guy that could be a consultant for me that's an experienced head coach that I could lean on throughout the season and in games to help me with situations or with how to manage a team overall?
This question is from Nordy Kane to Green Tree All-American on Twitter. He says, who plays nickel now with K. Scott potentially injured? Scott only played 22 snaps, by the way, against Syracuse. So after he scored on that touchdown, didn't play much after that in that game. So maybe he is banged up, and we'll find out on Saturday. But I think one name to consider is O.J. Frederick, especially if he comes back. I think Frederick played some snaps in the slot early in the year. Damari Brown is an outside corner. Ethan O'Connor is an outside corner. You could see Xavier Lucas move in there, especially how important he is to this defense. Lucas is one of their best cover guys. He's big and physical, but if Miami feels the need to keep that position really, really important, I think you could see Lucas in that nickel slot as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the other option the Hurricanes have is if you're not confident in that nickel replacement, right? If you'd rather keep O.J. Frederick on the outside and these other guys on the outside, you can even mix it in. Is go with a 3-safety look, right?
Right. Bryce Fitzgerald, the freshman who's gotten some picks for you, has got some snaps there as well, by the way.
Right. So you roll down a third safety, and then you can be a little bit more balanced. You could keep him on the back end. Maybe you roll down Poisoner or Jacoby Thomas and let them play a little bit in the slot. It depends also on what personnel groupings you're facing. Are you facing a slot receiver, or are you facing a flexed out tight end, which you're probably going to face this weekend? So in that case, I could probably use Poisoner and Thomas to lock him up and get a little bit more physical with him.
All right. Last one, Wilson Saltaviera, 21 on Twitter. Which game are we taking the L? Don't see us winning all 3 games. For me, it's this game against NC State. Dawson's vanilla play calling and NC State's explosive offense will be a nightmare. When Miami doesn't score first, Beck is erratic, and Dawson starts going A-gap run middle. All right, the pessimist in you, Carlos. Which of the next 3 games are they losing?
None. I don't think they lose the rest of the season. I don't think they lose the rest of the season, and I think for the most part, they should be convincing wins. I think Pitt's going to be a hell of a game. I think that's going to be the tight game at the end of the year. If they are going to lose one, it's probably that one. But I don't see them losing the last 3 games of the season. I think they will continue to make progress. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because now Shannon Dawson is listening to the podcast, and so is Mario, and they were making slight adjustments, ever so slight adjustments, thanks to our coverage.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happening. I would say they could lose this weekend and Pitt. I think both of those games are very much.
I think NC State's defense is way too bad for them to lose this game.
I agree. The fact Malachi Tony came to the press conference today and answered questions is encouraging sign to me, because if he was hurt, there's no way in hell they would have let him come to the mic. So that knee on knee bang or whatever that he had, I'm sure it'll slow him down. He won't be as effective against NC State. And he only had 2 catches, I think, for 13 yards in this last game against Syracuse, because teams are already game planning for him. But if you get CJ Daniels back and you get Pringle more involved, then I think this offense should be better and should be able to score enough points to beat NC State. But that Pitt game, to me, we'll see what happens with Pitt. They've got a big game against Notre Dame this week. Game day is there. They got to play at Georgia Tech. I mean, if Pitt completely falls apart by the time Miami has to play them at the end of the season, who knows what kind of state they'll be in. So there's a lot sort of in flux right now in college football. All right, one last question. David Hernandez, D. Hernan, says, I'm late again to the
but
question.
You got it in.
Rating the transfer edition so far, who would you rank first, second, third, whatever? Who do you think has been the best transfers for Miami?
Well, this season by far, Keontae Scott.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty easy to digest. I'm going to look at the roster here really quickly and scroll through my 8,000 sheets of notes here just so I don't forget anybody.
Offensively, CJ Daniels has been good.
Yeah, I think, look, Carson Beck, I don't know where Miami is if they have to play Emory Williams. Okay, I mean, let's take it for what it is. He's good enough to keep them in the playoff discussion. Marion has been solid. CJ Daniels has been good. And then defensively, I think Xavier Lucas, Keontae Scott, Poyser, Jacoby Thomas, all 4 of those guys have been huge for Miami this year. Even Ethan O'Connor, who's, he's played some off the bench. Mo Torre's been okay.
Yeah, he's been
David Blay, I know, has the offsides penalties, but he's done well otherwise on the defensive line. So,
Mesidor counts as he's not a recent transfer, but he's a transfer.
Right, but transfers from this past portal class. I would say of the 17 to 18 guys that they pulled out of there,
they
11 to 12 have been pretty good. I mean, the guys Marty Brown's been solid. Alex Bauman started a bunch of games. He doesn't have a lot of catches, but he's blocked well. The guys that really haven't made an impact are Jake Nickel. James Brockermeyer's been okay. He's not been as good as the previous centers. Tony Johnson was starting to make an impact, got hurt. Kamal Bonner's done nothing. Charles Brantley's done nothing. And that's it. Bert Auburn, the kicker, he lost his job to the other transfer that came over from FAU. Everybody else has done something. So I would say 10 to 11 good players out of the 17 that they got. And then the other guy, all but 3 are basically playing. You basically have Bonner, who's not playing, O'Connor, and Nickel. That's it. Everybody else in the portal they got has played a role. So that's pretty good hit rate in terms of getting some production out of your portal.
Yep.
All right. That's the last question. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Carlos, I appreciate you doing the show with me as you do every single week. I hope you guys got something out of this that you were able to enjoy from our penalty discussion to everything else with this team. Miami again, NC State this week, at Virginia Tech after that, and then at Pittsburgh. Have a chance to make the college football playoff. Just can't choke on the bone.
Listen, they can't, but let's not rule that out, right? Some people have their own, preferences, and if that's the way you want to go ahead. Especially if your spouse likes it, that's good.
All right, that's Carlos Ledo of the MIA All-Day Pod, former dancer for 2 Live Crew. I'm Manny Navarro from The Athletic. We will see you guys next week.
Peace.